Welcome back to my inner sanctum. I'm your hostess, Countess Elizabeth, mistress of the macabre. There's something ghoulishly fascinating about a mysterious disappearance, and our vast oceans offer seemingly endless space in which to vanish. Ghost ships are sometimes found abandoned under mysterious circumstances. Today, my fiends, we will look into a case of doomed ships, sometimes found years later, full of mystery. So, let us set sail as we explore the open seas, so we can explore a grotesque curiosity. The first ship we will look at is the Jenny. The Jenny was a schooner boat, which is a vessel with 2 or more masts, otherwise known as a tall ship. Although you may not have heard of her, Jenny and her fate have created a truly mysterious legend. In the Drake Passage, which is a body of water between Chile and South Shetland Islands of Antarctica, the Jenny was found frozen inside an ice barrier. Discovered in 1840, it had been almost 20 years since it first disappeared in 1823. One of the most haunting aspects of the Jenny story was a last entry in a logbook which read, May 4th, 1823, no food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. It was later confirmed that the Jenny's captain had written the message. When the Jenny was discovered by a whaling boat named Hope, ironically, the captain was found still sitting in his chair with his pen frozen in hand. An article in the German geographical magazine Globus states that the crew of the Hope believed that the Jenny was caught in an ice wall and remained there, hidden in mystery until the ice broke open. The article also stated that the crew of the Hope sighted a battered ship before they realized that it was a ghost ship. Although it was battered, it appeared to be manned. In fact, several men were standing at attention in the main deck. As the Hope slowly approached the Jenny, however, it became obvious that these men were not watching dutifully, but frozen solid at their posts. That would be certainly a grotesque thing to find. Captain Brighton of the Hope was the first to board and investigate the Jenny. He came across each crew member frozen in time. Once he made it below deck, he came across the Jenny's captain, eerily frozen, writing in his final journal entry. Some reports do state that the crew and captain of the Hope buried all the deceased at sea, including the captain's dog and wife. Other reports stated that they left them as they were, unwilling to disturb the bodies. Whatever the case, one can imagine the terror and sadness engulfed the crew of the Jenny, as they realized they would never be going home. But instead, their fate was with the icy Antarctic Sea. What would a video about doomed ships be like without mentioning the most famous case, the Flying Dutchman? Everyone has heard of the legend of the Flying Dutchman. It has inspired folklore, operas, musicals, and more since the legend started in the 17th century. The story tells of how the doomed Dutchman and her crew were condemned to wander the oceans for eternity. According to the legend, the ship was reportedly owned by the Dutch East India Company. These ships traveled between the East Indies and the Netherlands, transporting exotic goods such as spices, silks, and dye back to the Dutch ports. On her last voyage in 1641, the Dutchman and her captain, Vanderdenken, set out with normal conditions on their outward journey. However, their return journey was filled with peril. Vanderdenken was anxious to arrive in Amsterdam as soon as possible, and decided to take a shortcut around the Cape of Good Hope. As they rounded the cape, a horrible storm could be seen brewing in the distance. The Dutchman's crew begged their captain to turn back, but Vanderdenken ignored the crew's pleas, some say out of anger, others say out of drunkenness, and sailed straight into the storm. The crew mutinied, turning against their captain. Vanderdenken killed the leader of these rebels and threw them overboard in cold blood. As he did this, he exclaimed that he would complete the journey around the Cape, even if it took him until doomsday. The ship was later claimed by the seas, never to be found. As early as the 20th century, sailors have reported seeing the cursed ghost ship with torn black sails. It's regarded as an omen of impending doom. The ghostly vessel has been spotted floating just above the waves, or even underneath them. The last sighting of the Flying Dutchman was in 1939 on the South African coast. Beachgoers reported seeing a hazy ship coming towards shore, but as it turned and set its sails, it vanished into thin air. The legends seem to be true, as the Dutchman has been spotted for over 100 years, sailing aimlessly lost in the ocean. But these tales of ghost ships aren't just confined to old cases. The discovery of the Kaz II is a more recent ghost ship. Kaz II, or the Ghost Yacht, as it has been called, was a 9.8-meter catamaran, which has been found drifting just over 100 miles off the northeastern coast of Australia. On the 20th of April 2007, Kaz II had 3 main crew, all of whom were residents of Perth, Australia, Derek Batten and brothers James and Peter Dunstead. According to the Australian Maritime Safety Authority, Kaz II departed from Arley Beach on April 15, 2007. They were headed towards Queensland on the first leg of a journey that would take them around the west coast of the continent. The first indication of an issue was when the helicopter spotted Kaz II drifting in the Great Barrier Reef on April 20th. The helicopter pilot assumed that the crew may be in distress in need of assistance, So in turn, he sent out a signal to maritime authorities. When authorities finally caught up with the boat and boarded, they finally found all 3 men missing under circumstances they described as being strange. What they found was a bit strange in that everything was normal. There was just no sign of the crew. Officials released a statement that day, revealing that the boat wasn't damaged or out of service, and the lower deck was laid out as if the crew were still on board. There was a laptop computer set up and turned on. Plates and silverware were set on the table, and the boat's engine was even still running. Authorities had checked and confirmed that the CAS 2's emergency systems were in working order, and even the life jacket stock remained on board. A videotape was also recovered, showing the men's final moments on board. It was a home movie-style tape of men enjoying their day in the open ocean. Peter Tunstead had been seen fishing, Derek Batten was at the helm, and James Dunstead was taping, panning the camera to give a 360-degree view of the waters. Everything seemed peaceful and copacetic. Searches were started on the 18th of April, and after many fruitless hours, were eventually called off on April 25th. There were no signs of the 3 men anywhere in the ocean. The disappearance was strange, as Batten's wife recalled how thorough her husband was with safety and their need for planning. The boat was even investigated for signs of foul play, but again, nothing out of the ordinary was found. It was almost as if the men disappeared mysteriously into thin air. Sunday, April 15th, 2007, at 10:05 a.m., the CAS 2 was sailing near George Point. Up to that moment, everything was going as planned, but in the following hour, their situation changed dramatically. The men hauled in the white rope that was trailing behind the boat and bundled it up on the foredeck, possibly to dry. For unknown reasons, James Tunstead then took off his t-shirt and glasses and placed them on the back seat. The report says that the men's fishing lure was found entangled in the ship's port side rudder. An obvious explanation would be that one of them tried to free the lure and fell overboard while doing so. Standing on the boat's sugar scoop platform, which is the platform on the back of the ship close to the waterline, while the boat is moving is perilous, and following in the water is easy, but getting back aboard is almost impossible. One of the other men then came to the rescue of his brother, while Batten, still on board, started the motor and realized he had to drop the sails before he could go back for his friends. As he left the helm to drop the sails, a deviation of the ship's course or wind direction could have easily caused a jibe, swinging the boom across the deck and knocking Batten on board. This could even have happened before Batten was able to untie and throw out the life ring to his friends. The blue coffee mug found near the life ring may support this. Since the boat was traveling before the wind and at a speed of 15 knots or 17 miles per hour, it would have been out of reach for the men within seconds. A report then states, from that point, the end would have been swift. None of them were very good swimmers. The seas were choppy, and the men would have quickly become exhausted and sunk beneath the waves. So that's at least a theory of what happened to people on the CAS 2. Another famous ghost ship is the SS Bechimo. The SS Bechimo was a steel-hulled 1,322-ton cargo steamer built in 1914 in Sweden and owned by the Hudson Bay Company. It was used to trade for pelts in the Inuit settlements along the Victoria Island coast of Northwest Territories of Canada. October 1st, 1931. At the end of a trading run and loaded with cargo fur, Bechimo became trapped in pack ice. The crew briefly abandoned ship, traveling over a half a mile of ice to the town of Barrow to take shelter for 2 days, but the ship had broken free of the ice by the time the crew returned. The ship became mired again on October 8th, more thoroughly this time, and on October 15th, the Hudson Bay Company sent aircraft to retrieve 22 of the crew. 15 of the crew remained behind, intending to wait out the winter if necessary, and they constructed a wooden shelter some distance away. And after it abated, there was no sign of the Bechimo. The skipper concluded that she must have broken up and sunk in the storm. A few days later, however, an Inuit seal hunter had informed them that they had seen the Bechimo about 45 miles or 72 kilometers away from their position. The 15 men proceeded to track down the ship, deciding the ship was unlikely to survive the winter. The Bechimo was abandoned. The Bechimo did not sink, and over the next several decades there were numerous sightings of the ship, so the Bechimo is pretty much like a real-life Flying Dutchman. People managed to board her several times, but each time they were either unequipped to salvage the ship or driven away by bad weather. The last recorded sighting of the Bechimo was by a group of Inuit in 1969, 38 years after she was abandoned. She was stuck fast in the pack of ice of the Beaufort Sea between Point Barrow and Icy Cape in the Chucky Sea off the northwestern Alaskan coast. The Bechimo's ultimate fate is unknown and is presumed to have sunk. In 2006, the Alaskan government began to work on a project to solve the mystery of the ghost ship of the Arctic and locate the Bechimo, whether it's still afloat or on the ocean floor. She has not been found yet. Well, that was truly a grotesque tale. The oceans are a mysterious and merciless wasteland, filled with ghosts and spirits of ships of the past. Those were just some of the mysterious cases of doomed ships. What I found fascinating is some of the ships, like the Bechimo, may still be around years later, floating around like a real-life Flying Dutchman. May the souls of those lost crew rest in peace. Thank you for watching the video. Subscribe, like, and share if you would also like to keep exploring our grotesque curiosity. We will meet again in the darkness of the night.